Russians are dreading the arrival of the new year, 2026. The holiday promises to be very sad because the forecasts for the future are gloomier than the state of the liver of Medvedev. All economic experts, including Z-patriots, unanimously say that next year the swamp economy will finally kick the bucket.
The Russian economy is in a state of utter despair. If you look not at the official reports but at what businessmen are saying, it's horrifying. For example, business sentiment in the first half of the year has dropped by a quarter.
Well, I think the situation ahead will be even worse. If Trump, well, let's say, if we already have the desire for it for our own internal reasons, economic, strategic, things will only get worse.
A worsening of the already catastrophic demographic situation is expected. And not even early marriages, which are so eagerly hoped for, will save the situation.
There is a very good tradition in the Caucasus. They marry off their sons and daughters at a fairly young age. This is actually the right thing to do. We should take their example. How do I know? Ramzan Kadyrov has a big family, lots of children. They get married at quite a young age. That's what he told me. He said, we have this tradition. Overall, in the Caucasus, this is really great.
Judging by the dictator's new convictions, orthodoxy and traditional values are doomed as well. We wouldn't be surprised if, in 2026, Kadyrov's son becomes the new Moscow patriarch, especially since he loves all sorts of gilded trinkets. Despite the triumphant and victory-obsessed reports from Russian generals, nothing good awaits the occupiers at the front either. Nothing good at all. Losses will multiply, and their technical equipment may deteriorate. This is already happening. The Russian army, just like 100 years ago, is attacking on horseback. We won't show footage of the destruction of the modern-day Chapev, but we do offer our condolences to the horse. Despite trillions in funding, the Russian army is still in a deplorable state. They're literally lacking everything. Z supporters complain that there's even a shortage of socks and underwear, not to mention any kind of halfway decent equipment.
The only thing that really amazes me right now is that, honestly, I don't know how this is possible. I'm making a comparison here. 3.5 years of war. Is it really true that we still can't centrally supply our army with underwear and socks? That's what gets to me the most.
No, we still can't. It's mostly volunteers who are doing this.
Some might say that making predictions is a thankless task. But when it comes to Russia, prophecies always, in a remarkable way, come true. We've put together a ranking of the most significant and accurate predictions at the turn of the 20th and 21st centuries. Russian human rights activist and dissident Valeria Novodvorskaya made several eerily accurate prophecies. In 2014, in the first days after the fighting began in Donbass, Novodvorskaya addressed the residents of the LPR and DPR and described their future with remarkable accuracy.
Dear Donbas militiamen, also widely known as separatists, and indeed also frequently referred to as terrorists, and apparently it seems that absolutely no one has yet truly informed you of the complete truth about the unfortunate fate that inevitably awaits you, and precisely how Moscow is cynically using you as a mere bargaining chip in their geopolitical maneuvers. Donbas is not needed. It's not you they need a black hole. You see, the whole tragedy is that you have nothing to die for.
A terrible mistake. The residents of the occupied territories did not heed her words. For 10 years, the occupiers have been plundering the region, destroying industry, and bringing the infrastructure to the brink of collapse.
Dear Vladimir Vladimirovich, we've been homeless for the 4th year now. Our homes were demolished in March of the year 2023. These houses were supposed to be repaired, but the DPR authorities decided to tear them down. They simply threw us out onto the street. By annulling our addresses, they made us homeless.
Immediately after the annexation, a total mobilization was carried out in Donbass, and tens of thousands were sent into meat grinder assaults. No one knows exactly how many of them have already died, because in Moscow they weren't even counted among the losses of the Russian army. They were simply expendable material, not pitied, and almost completely wiped out in the first year of the war. Russia leveled the cities and villages of Donbass to the ground. It turned millions of people into refugees, and those who, for some reason, stayed behind, in a scorched wasteland, eke out a miserable existence on the brink of survival. This is, word for word, exactly what Novodvorskaya talked about.
Then you are nothing but cannon fodder. You are only a means to ensure war. Do you even know who Putin is? This monster is a Stalinist. He needs no one to live normally. He needs an empire.
Another strikingly accurate prediction by Novodvorskaya is that Russia will become fascist state.
They truly desire to have this abhorrent Hitler-esque scheme. Ein Führer.
Ein Reich, ein Volk. One people, one state, one Führer. They are playing out this scenario. Well, it turns out funny.
One country, one president, one victory.
Modern Russia and its Führer have completely repeated the special path of the Third Reich. They are waging a war of conquest, using slogans and symbols of Nazi Germany, ZTV in the army of occupiers, all this nonsense about a 1,000-year empire, living space for Russians, animal hatred of other peoples and not only Ukrainians. Entire Nazi units like Rusik, Wagner, and Hispaniola.
Recently, German intelligence agents published a report stating that 2 neo-Nazi groups are fighting against Ukraine on Russia's side. Let's start with the first one. This is the Imperial Legion, a unit of the Russian Imperial Movement.
Imperial Legion, detachment fought in Donbass 2014-2016. Correct name, Imperial Legion.
However, these bloodthirsty statements pale in comparison to the reputation of other far-right groups who went to denazify Ukraine, both in 2014 and now. We're talking about the Rusisch group. Supposedly, this is the second neo-Nazi group after the Imperial Legion, and here is its leader, Alexei Melchikov.
I'm telling you, I'm a Nazi. Salute.
But the main sign of fascism in Russia is its openly genocidal policy, which is enthusiastically supported by a huge number of its so-called traditionalist population.
Well, apparently that's exactly what's happening, just wiping out everything on the left bank. Next, the crowd will sweep across Ukraine, and it will be much easier to carry out a cleansing of the territory. It won't be a big deal if some girl named Galia dies in Koliki, in Chernihiv.
I believe that the ugly creation of the Belovej Accords should be eliminated altogether. We don't need Ukraine in any form.
The hatred produced by propaganda spreads not only outward. Interethnic strife is already tearing Russia apart from within. Take the case in Vodensov when a young admirer of Nazism attacked a child at school, of a different nationality, just one small example of this.
A student violently stabbed a school security guard, forcefully sprayed a chemical gas canister, and subsequently stabbed a young 10-year-old student who tragically died as a result of the severe wound.
Before the attack, Timofey sent an 11-page manifesto titled My Anger to Other Children. In it, he writes about how he hates society. He also expresses Nazi ideas and religious intolerance.
Boris Nemtsov also made several terrifying predictions that came true. 10 years ago, he predicted a full-scale Russian attack on Ukraine.
Russia is occupying neighboring territories. It's a kind of tradition, you know, that everything around must be seized, even if you don't actually need it. You know, one of the most popular phrases that Putin and Medvedev repeat thousands of times. And by the way, I think these phrases are borrowed from the era of the Third Reich. It's the phrase that Russia is rising from its knees. This tradition, that rising from one's knees always has to involve killing someone. Killing and seizing territory. That's a disaster, isn't it?
It seems like Putin makes his plans by peeking into the prophecies of his opponents. We hope the West will do the same, because Nemtsov predicted a complete total isolation of Russia.
A blow to Putinism is, without a doubt, isolation. He just thinks the West will never dare to do it.
This was partially implemented in the first years of the war. Even China supported the Russian Reich very cautiously and in a veiled manner. Everything changed with the arrival of Trump, who, for reasons known only to himself, pulled Russia out of the pit by the ears and made Putin acceptable again.
Oh, what a fool.
There is a prediction by Nemtsov that hasn't come true yet, but could very well happen in the coming year. Nemtsov predicted the fall of the Putin regime if the price of oil drops below $60 per barrel.
Putin's regime is very corrupt and highly inefficient. In order for it not to go bankrupt, oil must be priced above $60. If oil is above $60, the regime survives. If oil is cheaper than $60, which by the way is actually a high price, then the regime goes bankrupt. And
now, as the damned humorist Zadornov used to say, take a deep breath. Just recently, the price of Russian Urals oil dropped to $34 per barrel, which is twice as low as the survival threshold for the Kremlin's gang. Let's keep our fingers crossed and believe that this prediction by Boris Nemtsov will also come true, and very soon at that.
Beyond the Urals, from the Urals to the Far East, 20 million Russians live. 20 million. Along the thousands of kilometers long border, on the other side, there are over 1 billion Chinese people. At the same time, China has no oil or gas. And in the end, they'll simply take it over. They don't even need to shoot, they can just come there. On foot. And
as a little bonus, one more precisely accurate prophecy from Nemtsov: China will swallow Russia and take away the Far East and Siberia. In fact, the economic takeover has already happened. Russia is completely dependent on Beijing. It has become its raw materials appendage and colony. China is siphoning off resources for cheap and, in return, selling its goods at exorbitant prices, destroying the uncompetitive Russian industry.
We are, and indeed we truly want to be, a mere raw materials appendage for China, specifically for China's continued economic development, rather than for the genuine development of our very own country. And in this scenario,
China does not intend to stop there. Recently, a very significant article appeared in the Chinese press stating that as a result of the war and economic crisis, Russia is falling apart, so it is necessary to take at least 1/3 of its territory.
Now that's a twist.
Does anyone doubt that in China, the media can say anything without the approval and go-ahead from the ruling party?
No.
The Chinese are openly stating that the Russian economy is in a dire state. Its GDP is even lower than that of a single provincial region in China. The war in Ukraine has consumed Russia's main military forces, and there are fewer than 50,000 troops left in the Far East. In the event of Russia's collapse, China should take control of 7 million square kilometers in the Far East. In other words, to reclaim lands that are originally Chinese.
All right. Not bad.
Are you out of your mind or something?
The Chinese publication also justifies its claim to these lands. Quote, "The region is sparsely populated, cold, has poor infrastructure, and Russia is unable to manage it effectively. China can solve these problems and is gradually taking control of the region." Not bad, the great geostrategist is doing a fine job defending the Russian world. While hundreds of thousands of Russians are being wiped out in Donbass, Beijing is calmly taking over a territory big enough to fit 875 DNRs.
Do the math, figure it out.
One of the most accurate predictions was made by the president of Free Ichkeria, Dzhokhar Dudayev. Back in 1996, he said that Russia's plans were not limited to Chechnya. Next would be Crimea, the Baltic countries, and Kazakhstan.
That was the plan. And then Crimea, the Chechnya campaign was coming to an end. All those troops were supposed to move into Crimea. In Lithuania and Belarus, the corridor and the Kaliningrad region were occupied by Russian troops who had nowhere else to go. Go there, conquer, and there you can eat, loot, rape, kill, pillage, and live off that. In Estonia, the Narva district was supposed to be seized and occupied.
After Crimea, the civilized world should have started thinking about it. Maybe it will wake up only after Russian troops have already crossed the Estonian border.
Estonian authorities reported that on December 17th, 3 Russian border guards entered Estonian territory and stayed there for about 20 minutes. According to a Telegram channel, the violation occurred on land, on a small section of Estonian territory located beyond the Narva River.
Either all these people had the gift of foresight, or Russia is a very primitive and predictable country. But then again, that's true of any empire. It is aggressive and backward. It is hateful toward people and is bound to collapse sooner or later.
Today, Russia is Carthage, which must be destroyed.
Let us make a prediction of our own. In Mariupol, before Russia's invasion, the New Year tree fell down. After that, the city was almost wiped off the face of the earth. Recently in Moscow, something fell. The New Year tree. Could this be a hint from karma? I want to remind you that this video was created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolic or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. We do not aim to mislead anyone. We are simply putting the emphasis on humor. Please take this with a smile.